Hi, I'm Dustin Abbott. Spring is finally here. It took a long time in 2025, and camping season is starting to pick up. In 2024, the brand Ogery was somewhat of a social media sensation when it came to TikTok and places like that for their camping accessories, and they sold millions of their F11 camping fan, which they have improved some for 2025. I have not done a lot of camping in recent years. We bought all the gear. We did it for a few years. However, I was kind of intrigued by the premise of some of their products, and so when they reached out to me, I said, yes, I'll take a look at a couple of your camping related things and see what I think of them. So today I'm going to look at the F11 camping fan along with one of their very multi-dimensional camping lights, which I know from my experience when I was trying to get camping gear was one of the hardships for me at that time. It was a little bit pre-LED becoming kind of widespread and built-in batteries, and so often these camping lights were built around very expensive C or D type batteries. They weren't all that efficient to run, so I was really intrigued at that because I know LED technology and built-in batteries has come a long way. So I'll be looking at both of those things today. In the daytime, I'm going to be looking at the fan. At nighttime, I'm going to be looking at the light. Now, before we jump in and take a look at the camping fan, in disclosure, these items were sent to me by Ogery for this review. However, they have had no input on my actual review process, nor will they see this video before it is released to you, the public. As always, these are my thoughts and I'll own them. Let's jump on into the tent and let's take a look at this fan. So anybody that has slept in a tent before knows that tents have basically two temperatures, too hot or too cold, and it's rarely anywhere in between. So the use of a fan like this can actually make a huge difference when you're camping, but of course this is something that's useful in a lot of other settings, not just in a camping type setting. Now, a fan is not necessarily going to help keep you warm when it gets really cold in here, but it can at least cool you off a bit. This is a battery-powered fan that also has a 3-step integrated LED light, making it doubly useful in that regard. It also has an IPX4 rating, which means that it's splash-proof, which is going to help, obviously, if you're using it in an outdoor type setting, if it starts to rain or something happens like that, at least you're not having to worry about it being too fragile. So let's dive in and take a look at some things that I like about the fan and some things that I don't like about it. First of all, it is incredibly quiet. Now, that's obviously going to be important for a lot of reasons, but when I was actually running my test, I did it in my office as I was working. I thought it was going to be a shorter window than what it was, and so I started my test, and I had the fan starting off. I ran the test at the low mode. It was quiet enough that I kept forgetting that it was on or that it was even in the room with me. So even the sound of my workstation, my computer workstation running, completely drowned it out. And even when you maximize it all the way up to the highest setting, which I'm going to do right now, I've maxed it out right now, and the sound only gets loud enough to basically provide just a little bit of white noise in the background, which is really a desirable type thing when you're in a camping type setting. And so that's one thing that really stood out to me. The second thing that really stood out to me is just how long that battery life lasted. And so as I mentioned, I started the test first on the lowest setting and thinking, I was going to be able to at least to graph as it dropped, it dropped in battery percentage going on to get, and then I could extrapolate out how long it's going to last. So I started running the test. 24 hours later, I checked back at it and hadn't even yet dropped a percentage bar on there. And so I knew that this was going to be a very, very efficient fan. And in fact, it can run up to 60 hours on the low setting that I was running it on. So I moved it up to the highest setting that I've got it on right now. And what I found is even then I was able to get about 24 hours of it running. So obviously that's going to be really, really useful. The other thing that I did find useful, because it can be charged off USB, is that even if you're not carrying like a portable power station, which I've done a lot of reviews of, a lot of solar panels actually do have a USB or USB-C, USB-A or USB-C lead coming off them. And I found that I could very easily directly charge it right off of a solar panel, which again was very, very useful. And you can charge up to 20 watts as opposed to a more typical 10, which means you can charge it completely in 4 hours. So again, you have ways to where you can charge it back up and get a lot of use out of it. Actually with the light, at the highest setting you can run that for more like 40 hours, and at the highest setting, or the lowest setting I should say, on that you can get over 120 hours, and so it really runs quite efficiently. And so that's powered by a 20,000 mAh battery that's in there, so it's roughly twice the size of your typical portable power bank. And you also have the flexibility that you could charge your phone or your tablet off of that if you're not ending up needing to use the fan a lot. Even if you bring along and it's cooler than what you expect, the fact that you have a power bank with you could be useful in that regard. So that's another thing that I liked about it. I also appreciated the fact that it is a nice combination of being lightweight. It weighs in at about 4 pounds, which isn't bad considering how big of a built-in battery you've got, but it also happens to be really, really tough. It's designed to be drop-proof, and so if you're out camping or using it in the garage and it gets knocked over, it's not going to be so fragile that it's going to immediately break. And in fact, it does come with a 2-year warranty, and so I appreciate the fact that it's actually designed to be tough. As you can see right now, the way that I'm using it, it is also designed to where it's got a 360-degree ratcheting hook. And the ratcheting part is useful because if you're hanging it in a tent, the weight as it kind of moves around means that it probably isn't going to end up kind of rotating in the position you want it to if you're just hanging it. So the fact that you can ratchet that means that you can position it around until you get actually the position you want. And it's very versatile in the ways that you can rotate it. And so in this case, for example, if I had it hanging in the tent and so we were sleeping down below, you can rotate it to where it's doing the most useful thing. You also have the ability to obviously program the oscillating. You can oscillate up to 120 degrees. You can rotate that upper hook 360 degrees, and so you get a lot of versatility, and also you have a wide range of tilting it back and forth. So all of that I find useful, and being able to get the airflow where you actually want it to be. And of course, it's nice that you can control things like oscillating right from the remote itself. The remote's range is about 16 feet, and so it's not huge, but it's enough to where it works, and I had no problem with that. The other thing that's interesting here is that you actually can move a pretty decent amount of air when you're on the highest setting. At the highest setting, you can push 300 CFM, and so 300 CFM is roughly similar to the amount of air, for example, that a strong bathroom fan can suck, but in this case it's blowing out. And so it is a useful amount of air that can be felt up to 17 feet away. And so that in a smaller space like a tent, or if you're using it in your garage or setting like that, you can move a decent amount of air. I actually even used it when I had a pump fail in the basement, so I had some flooding. I used it to help to dry out the basement, and of course the long battery life means that I could run it all night long. In the morning I came in, the basement was nicely dried up, and the fan still had battery to spare. So all of that was good. I like the fact that there is a designed slot on the back where the remote can be there and hidden away, and also the way that it kind of sets in there. Even if you have the fan hanging upside down like this, the remote will remain in its pocket. It's not going to fall out. One other cool kind of smart feature for camping that I like is that you have a button both on the fan itself and then on the remote that will go into a night mode. And in the night mode, it's going to turn off all of those potentially distracting LED lights that are showing you, the setting you're on, how fast the fan is going, things like that. You can turn all of that off, and so that you get as least distraction as possible. It also does have a built-in timer, and so if you're only wanting it to run, say, an hour right now while you fall asleep, you can go 1 hour, 2 hour, 4 hours, or 8 hours and program it to that, and so that you can help to save battery in that regard. Now, I do appreciate the fact that there are redundant controls on the actual unit itself. So if you're someone that loses things like remotes, well, you still can control it from that. But that leads me to what I would consider my only real potential negative here, and that is the simple fact that one of the knobs, I like the knob because it rotates. So it's an easy way to just kind of regulate the speed of the fan up and down. However, it is also touch sensitive, so you can turn the fan on or off by depressing it. And what I find is that it's not difficult to accidentally bump that. And so I found that I've had it in a position where I opened a door and a door bumped against that because it protrudes. That's the furthest thing that sticks out. It would turn the fan on. And because it's so quiet, I actually found that I'd almost run the battery down at one point because the fan had been running for several days on the low speed mode, and I didn't even know that it was on, but it had gotten bumped by that. Also, if it tips over, you could potentially depress that and, turn it on. So I would like that to be maybe a little bit lower profile where it's not so easy to inadvertently bump it. And so a minor complaint, but I do have a complaint about it there. Now, the price of this is $86, and that's I think a decent value for all that you're getting here, and the fact that you're getting a power bank, you're getting a camping light, maybe a way to light your tent, and then also the fan. It gives you kind of a 3-in-1 type value. And so I would say if you're going to buy any one of these accessories, either this or the light, buy the fan, because you're getting a light and, maybe not as much light as the dedicated light, but you're getting a fan and you're also getting the light there itself. Not to mention the power bank. All of those things tend to be very useful. And so definitely the Ogery F11 camping fan is really quite cool. And I wish I'd had it back when I was camping more often. All right, night has fallen, and so now I'm here to talk to you about the Z10 telescoping light, and obviously it comes with this stand as well. So in this case, we've got a 10,000 mAh power bank, and so that will allow you to run this light on the setting I've got it right now, which is the lowest setting, which is plenty bright for illuminating a tent. You can run it for 24 hours at that point. On the highest brightness, which I'll ratchet up just for a moment here, you can ratchet that up, and so that's going to run up to 8 hours on that that highest setting there. You can use this as a power bank, as in the case of the fan that we looked at earlier. The light output is going to vary from anywhere from 60 lumens up to 2200 lumens at the brightest. And so at that 2200 lumen brightness, they say it's enough to illuminate like a little league field. I haven't tested that personally, so that's their claim, but I can attest to the fact that it obviously gets very, very bright. Like the fan, it does have an IPX4 rating, and so it is weather resistant. You can have it outdoors. You can be in the rain. That's not a problem. It's also drop rated, so a drop rating of up to about 5 feet, so 1.5 meters roughly. You can drop it, and it's rated for using in that kind of situation, which is good. Anything that you're going to hang, like a work light or put on a stand, there's probably going to be some kind of moment where it's going to get knocked over or fall off something, and so it's good to have that drop rating on it. The stand itself that is included, obviously you can use it separate from that, and we'll get to that in just a moment, but the stand itself, at its most retracted position, it's 29 inches, reasonably small, but obviously I've seen smaller than that, and it will telescope up to a height of 78 inches overall. And so you can get it up nice and high, and so you can put light where you want it to be. Now, very interestingly, when it comes to all of these arms, they are rotatable on 2 axes. So in this axis, you can rotate it 270 degrees, not quite all the way around. And then in terms of up and down adjustment, you can go 180 degrees in terms of the adjustment. And so, I mean, by the time you've played with all of that, you can pretty much get the light wherever you want it. And so that's great. It's also really flexible in terms of positioning the light. And so obviously on the stand, you can use it in that kind of application. Plus, it can be hung. There is a strap here at the bottom, or a hook where you can hang it, for example, in a tent if you just wanted to go kind of simple there. It also has magnets in it, and so you can magnetically mount it to any kind of metal surface, so that's obviously going to be very useful. And outside of just the lights that are here, you also have the flashlight portion there at the top, and that flashlight is very, very bright and very intense. And so it's not, because it's thicker, it's not the most convenient flashlight to carry. But again, if you're trying to multi-purpose and this is serving all of those things, it's going to be great, at least in terms of the light output. You also have options in terms of the color temperature. And so you've got a daylight 6500 Kelvin, you have got a warm 3500, and then you've got an in-between, which is 4500 Kelvin. And so that's obviously going to be useful. Because I don't actually camp all that much anymore, where I'm going to use this is as a work light. And I think it's a really, really versatile type work light, because you've got the stand, you can magnetically attach it, you can rotate these things around, you have different brightness outputs, and so I think it could be very, very useful for those type of applications. So in terms of cost, this one will cost you about $109 in that range, and that includes the stand itself. And so, you know, It's not the cheapest LED light out there, but in terms of the versatility, having that power bank, having it being portable like this, rechargeable, being able to charge your phone from it, all of those things. Well, obviously, there's a lot of versatility that's baked into it. And, you know, of course, this is actually designed to get wet, to take camping, to do all those things. So I think it's probably still a worthy investment. Though, as I said earlier, if I was just to buy one thing, I'd probably buy the fan, because you also get some light out of that as well. So as I have taken a look at this Ogery camping gear, you know what? It almost makes me want to camp. These are two tools that I think would have, let's just say, enhanced our own camping experience. And so that tells me that very likely they would enhance your camping experience as well. And so if you're looking to spend a little bit more money to make your camping life easier, well, these are two tools that maybe should go on to the wish list. I'm Dustin Abbott. If you want more information, you can take a look at the links in the description down below, and you can do some research or purchase at those links. As always, thanks for watching. Have a great day, and let the light in.